When Elon Musk picked up a guitar during a tense SpaceX meeting, the internet exploded with mockery. But what happened next at the Los Angeles Philharmonic changed everything the world thought they knew about the man who built rockets to reach Mars. The SpaceX conference room smelled like coffee and stress. Elon Musk sat at the head of the long glass table, his fingers drumming against its surface as he stared at the massive screen showing Starship's latest test results. Red numbers blinked like angry warnings across the display. The heat shield. "Tiles are failing again," said Tom Mueller, his voice tired from too many late nights. The veteran engineer pushed his glasses up his nose and pointed at the screen. "We're seeing the same problems we had 3 months ago." Gwynne Shotwell, SpaceX's president, leaned forward in her chair. Her usually confident expression showed worry lines that hadn't been there last year. "The NASA contract requires us to launch by December. That's only 4 months away." Elon rubbed his temples. Outside the windows of the Hawthorne, California headquarters, he could see workers moving around the factory floor. They all depended on him to solve problems like this. Sometimes the weight of their trust felt heavier than a rocket. "What if we try a different tile pattern?" asked Marcus Chun, one of the younger engineers. At 28, Marcus still believed every problem had a solution if you just thought hard enough. "We've tried 12 different patterns," Tom replied, not unkindly. "The issue isn't the pattern. It's the basic design." The room fell quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. They might have to start over with a completely new approach. Months of work, millions of dollars, and time they didn't have. Elon stood up and walked to the window. Down below, workers were building the next Starship prototype. Each piece of metal represented someone's job, someone's dream of reaching Mars. He couldn't let them down. "Let's take a 15-minute break," he said. "Clear our heads. Then we'll figure this out." As the team filed out, talking in small groups, Elon noticed something in the corner of the room. An acoustic guitar leaned against the wall, forgotten from last week's company party. Some musician had performed for the employees and left it behind. Without really thinking, Elon walked over and picked up the guitar. The wood felt warm in his hands. He hadn't held one in years, but his fingers remembered where to go. He pressed down on the strings and strummed a simple chord. The sound filled the empty room. Not perfect, but honest. He tried another chord, then another. A melody started to form, something old and half-remembered. "Boss." Elon looked up to see Marcus Chun standing in the doorway. The young engineer's eyes were wide with surprise. "I didn't know you played guitar," Marcus said, stepping back into the room. "I picked up a few things over the years," Elon replied, his fingers still moving across the strings. "Why now?" Other team members had heard the music and were drifting back into the conference room. Gwen appeared with her coffee cup, raising her eyebrows at the unexpected concert. "Play something we know," called out Sarah Kim from the propulsion team. Elon felt his cheeks grow warm. This wasn't what he'd planned, but everyone was watching now, their faces curious and amused. Some looked like they needed a laugh after the tough meeting. He started playing a song he remembered from college, something simple that most people would recognize. But his timing was off. His fingers fumbled on the frets, pressing the wrong strings. The melody came out choppy and uncertain. Someone in the back giggled. Then someone else. Elon saw Marcus pull out his phone and pointed in his direction. "Are you recording this?" Elon asked, still trying to play. "Just for fun, boss," Marcus said with a grin. "This is going straight to the SpaceX group chat." Elon's playing got worse as he became more nervous. The song that had sounded okay in his head came out like a broken robot trying to make music. When he finally stopped, the room erupted in good-natured laughter and applause. "Well," said Gwen, clapping slowly, "I guess we know what you'll be doing if the rocket business doesn't work out." Everyone laughed again. Elon managed a smile and carefully put the guitar back in its corner. "Back to work, everyone. Those heat shields won't fix themselves." But as the team settled back into their seats, Marcus was already typing on his phone. The video was uploading to the company's internal social media. From there, it would only be a matter of time. The meeting continued for another hour. They made some progress on the heat shield problem, but Elon found it hard to focus. He kept thinking about the guitar, about how his fingers had remembered the chords even after all these years. That evening, Elon drove home to his house in Austin, Texas. The mansion sat on several acres, giving him space to think without neighbors watching his every move. As he pulled into his driveway, his phone started buzzing with notifications. The video had leaked and Marcus's recording was now on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Hashtag Elon Guitar was already trending. The comments were brutal. Stick to rockets, Elon. Even his guitar playing is delayed like his launches. This is what happens when you have too much money and not enough talent. Maybe he should focus on making cars that actually work. Late-night talk show hosts were already making jokes. Jimmy Fallon tweeted, "Breaking, local billionaire discovers he can't buy musical talent." Elon set his phone aside and walked through his quiet house. In his bedroom, he stopped at his closet and pushed aside some old clothes. Hidden in the back was a guitar case, dusty and forgotten. Inside was an old acoustic guitar, its wood worn smooth by years of playing. A small piece of paper was taped to the inside of the case. The writing faded but still readable. "Music connects souls across any distance, my dear boy. Promise me you'll learn to play from the heart, not just the head." Grandmother Cora, Elon, picked up the guitar and sat on his bed. In the silence of his mansion, away from cameras and critics, he began to play. The melody that came out was sad and beautiful, nothing like the fumbling performance from earlier. This was the guitar his grandmother had left him when she died. This was the music he'd hidden from the world for 30 years. His phone rang, interrupting the quiet song. The caller ID showed a number he hadn't seen in decades. "Hello," Elon answered. "Elon," said a gravelly voice with a slight accent. "I saw the video. Maybe it's time." Elon's fingers tightened on the guitar neck. "Time for what, Jacob?" "Time to honor the promise you made to her." The line went quiet. Outside, the Texas night was still and dark. But inside Elon's chest, something was stirring. Something he'd buried long ago under rockets and electric cars and the endless pressure to change the world. "Jacob," he whispered, "I don't know if I remember how. That's why I'm calling." The old man replied, "Music never forgets, Elon. Even when we do." Elon's hand trembled as he held the phone. Jacob Bernstein's voice brought back memories he tried to forget for 30 years. "You disappeared after that last lesson in Philadelphia," Jacob continued. "One day you were there, the next you were gone. No goodbye, no explanation. I had to focus on my business," Elon said quietly. "There wasn't time for music anymore." "There's always time for music, Elon. Your grandmother knew that." The mention of his grandmother made Elon's chest tighten. He looked down at the old guitar in his hands, Cora's guitar, the same one she'd played in their small house in Pretoria all those years ago. "Tell me about her again," Jacob said softly. "Tell me about Cora." Elon closed his eyes and let the memories wash over him. Suddenly, he was 12 years old again, sitting in his bedroom in South Africa in 1989. Computer parts covered his desk, circuit boards scattered everywhere. But in the corner sat the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, his grandmother's classical guitar. Cora Amelia Robinson had been special. While most people in South Africa during apartheid kept to their own racial groups, Grandmother Cora played music for everyone. She performed in small clubs and secret venues where black and white people could sit together, even though it was dangerous. "Music doesn't see color," she used to tell young Elon. "Music only hears hearts." The police had warned her many times to stop playing for mixed audiences. But Grandmother Cora kept playing. She said music was stronger than hate, stronger than the laws that tried to keep people apart. Elon remembered sitting on her lap while she played. Her fingers moved like magic across the strings, creating sounds that made him feel like he was floating. She would hum along, her voice warm and gentle. "One day, my dear boy," she would say, "you'll understand that music connects souls across any distance. Even when we can't see each other, even when we're scared, music finds a way." When Elon was 13, Grandmother Cora had a heart attack while walking home from the market. She died instantly, her heart simply stopping like a clock that had run out of time. To her funeral, hundreds of people came. Black families, white families, Indian families, all sitting together in the same church. Many of them Elon had never seen before. They told stories about how Cora's music had touched their lives, how she'd played at secret weddings and hidden birthday parties, bringing joy to places where joy was forbidden. After the funeral, Elon found a note in the guitar case. "Music connects souls across any distance, my dear boy. Promise me you'll learn to play from the heart, not just the head." Young Elon had tried to learn. He really had. But the guitar felt wrong in his hands without grandmother Cora there to guide him. The strings seemed too tight, the chords too difficult. His mathematical mind wanted to understand the theory behind music, but his heart was too broken to feel the songs. After months of struggling, he put the guitar away and focused on computers. At least computers made sense. They followed rules. They didn't require him to open his heart to a world that had taken away the person he loved most. "Jacob," Elon said into the phone, "how did you know my grandmother?" There was a pause. "I didn't know her personally, Elon, but I knew about her. In the music world, word travels. We heard about a woman in South Africa who played for mixed audiences during apartheid. Some of us sent her sheet music and encouragement through secret networks." Elon felt tears forming in his eyes. He'd never known that people around the world had heard about his grandmother's courage. "When you came to me at the University of Pennsylvania," Jacob continued, "you played one of her songs. I recognized it immediately. That's when I knew you were Cora Robinson's grandson." The memories flooded back. Elon was 18, alone in America, struggling with his studies and missing home. A friend had suggested he take music lessons to help with stress. That's how he'd found Dr. Jacob Bernstein. Jacob was different from other teachers. He was in his 50s then, with kind eyes and patient hands. He never pushed Elon to play faster or louder. Instead, he taught him that music was about stories, about sharing pieces of your soul with others. "You were gifted, Elon," Jacob said, "not just technically, but emotionally. When you played your grandmother's songs, the whole room would go quiet. People would stop what they were doing just to listen." But Elon remembered something else about those lessons. He remembered being terrified every time he played for others. What if they didn't understand? What if they laughed? What if he wasn't good enough to honor his grandmother's memory? The fear had grown stronger each week. During one lesson, Elon had played beautifully for Jacob alone. But when Jacob invited another student to listen, Elon's hands had frozen on the strings. He couldn't make a sound. "I'm not like my grandmother," Elon had told Jacob that day. "She was brave. I'm just scared." "Fear is normal," Jacob had replied. "But hiding your gift helps no one." Those words had haunted Elon. After that lesson, he'd stopped coming. He threw himself into his computer studies, then into his first internet company. Music became a secret shame, a reminder of his cowardice. "I stopped playing because I was afraid," Elon admitted now, 30 years later. "I was afraid I'd disappoint her memory." "And now?" Jacob asked gently. Elon looked at his phone, still buzzing with notifications about the viral video. The whole world was laughing at him again, just like he'd feared all those years ago. "Now the whole world knows I'm not good enough," Elon said. "The whole world knows you're human," Jacob corrected. "That's different." Through his bedroom window, Elon could see the stars beginning to appear in the Texas sky. He'd spent his adult life trying to reach those stars with rockets and technology. But sitting here with his grandmother's guitar, he wondered if he'd been trying to escape something instead of reach for something. "Jacob," he said finally, "why did you really call tonight?" "Because I'm 89 years old, Elon. And because I have something to tell you about your grandmother that you need to hear." "What?" "Not over the phone. Can you come see me? I'm in Pasadena now, at Sunset Manor Retirement Home. There's something she left for you. Something besides the guitar." Elon's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "Come see me tomorrow, and I'll show you." "But Elon." "Yes, bring the guitar." It's time Cora's music came home. The line went dead. Elon sat in the darkness of his mansion, holding his grandmother's guitar and staring at the stars. Somewhere out there were the planets he wanted to explore, the future he was trying to build for humanity. But maybe, just maybe, he needed to understand his past before he could reach his future. He picked up the guitar and began to play one of Grandmother Cora's songs. In the quiet of his room, with no cameras or critics, the music sounded like love. It sounded like home. It sounded like a promise he'd been too afraid to keep. Elon barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his grandmother's face or heard Jacob's voice saying there was something else Cora had left for him. By dawn, he was already dressed and drinking coffee in his kitchen, staring at his phone. The notifications had multiplied overnight. #Elon Guitar was still trending, but now there were news articles too. Musk's musical meltdown goes viral and "Why Billionaires Should Stick to Business" filled his screen. But mixed in with the mockery were different kinds of messages. A teenager from Ohio had posted, "At least he tried. I've been too scared to play my violin for anyone." An elderly woman from Florida wrote, "My husband played guitar badly for 50 years and I loved every note." Elon was about to put his phone away when an email appeared that made him stop breathing. It was from Maria Santos, director of the Los Angeles Philharmonic. The subject line read, "An invitation to share your music." With shaking fingers, Elon opened the email. "Dear Mr. Musk, I watched your video this morning, and unlike the critics, I saw something beautiful. I saw someone making music with genuine emotion, even if the technique wasn't perfect. That's rarer than you might think in professional music. I'm writing to invite you to perform at our annual charity gala next month. The theme is Hidden Talents, Hidden Hearts, celebrating people who have secret artistic gifts they've been afraid to share. I lost my father in a factory accident when I was 12. Music saved me during that dark time. I believe music has the power to connect us all, especially when it comes from an honest place. Would you consider joining us? The gala raises money for music education in underserved communities. Your presence would mean everything to those children. Sincerely, Maria Santos." Elon read the email 3 times. Then he walked to his window and looked out at the Texas morning. Birds were singing in the oak trees, creating their own kind of music. His phone rang. It was Gwen Shotwell. "Elon, please tell me you're not seriously considering this Philharmonic thing," she said without even saying hello. "How did you know about it?" "Maria Santos called our office an hour ago. She wanted to make sure the invitation reached you directly." "Elon, this is crazy. You'll be performing in front of 2,000 people, including major investors and media." Elon could hear the worry in Gwen's voice. She'd been protecting him and SpaceX for years, keeping him focused on the mission to reach Mars. "What if it goes badly?" Gwen continued. "What if you freeze up? The internet is already making jokes. This could hurt Tesla and SpaceX stock prices." Or, Elon said quietly, "It could show people that taking risks is what makes us human. This isn't launching a rocket, Elon. This is your heart on stage for everyone to see." Exactly, Elon thought. That's exactly what it is. After hanging up with Gwen, Elon drove to Pasadena to visit Jacob. Sunset Manor was a peaceful place with gardens and walking paths. Inside, he found Jacob in a small room filled with old photographs and sheet music. At 89, Jacob looked fragile, but his eyes were still bright. When he saw Elon carrying the guitar case, he smiled. "You came," Jacob said, struggling to stand from his wheelchair. "You said my grandmother left something else for me." Jacob pointed to an old wooden box on his desk. "Sit down first. There's a story you need to hear." Elon pulled up a chair as Jacob opened the box. Inside were letters, photographs, and what looked like sheet music. "Your grandmother didn't just play for mixed audiences in South Africa," Jacob began. "She wrote music too. Songs about hope, about freedom, about bringing people together." He pulled out a faded photograph showing a young woman with kind eyes, holding a guitar. Even in the old picture, Elon could see his grandmother's strength. "After she died, her friends sent me some of her compositions. They thought other musicians around the world should know about her work. I've been keeping them safe for 30 years, waiting for the right moment to share them." Jacob handed Elon a piece of sheet music. The title, written in his grandmother's handwriting, was "Bridge Across the Sky." "She wrote this about bringing people together despite the distances between them," Jacob explained. "But there's something else. Look at the dedication." At the bottom of the page, in faded ink, Elon read, "For my grandson Elon, who will one day build bridges to the stars." Elon's hands shook as he held the paper. His grandmother had believed in his space dreams before. He'd even shared them with anyone. "How did she know?" he whispered. "Grandmothers have a way of seeing the future in their grandchildren's eyes," Jacob said with a smile. "She told her friends that you would change the world, but that music would keep you human while you did it." Elon carefully placed the sheet music back in the box. "Jacob, I got an invitation to perform with the Los Angeles Philharmonic." The old man's face lit up. "Maria Santos is a good woman. She understands that music isn't about perfection. I can't do it. I'm not ready. What if I embarrass myself again?" Jacob was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Let me tell you about Maria Santos. Her father died in an accident at a car factory when she was young. The family had no money for music lessons, but Maria loved music so much that she practiced violin on a borrowed instrument in a church basement. He pointed to a newspaper clipping on his wall. She worked her way through music school, became a conductor, and now runs one of the world's greatest orchestras. But she never forgot what it felt like to be afraid of not being good enough. Elon studied the newspaper photo of Maria Santos conducting, her face focused and passionate. Every year, Jacob continued, her gala raises money so kids like she used to be can have music lessons. Kids who think they're not good enough, not rich enough, not talented enough. But I'm not a real musician, Elon protested. Your grandmother played in secret clubs during apartheid, Jacob replied. She wasn't a famous musician either. But her music mattered because it came from love, not ego. That afternoon, Elon made 2 phone calls. First, he called Maria Santos and accepted her invitation. Her excitement was so genuine that Elon almost cried. Mr. Musk, she said, I promise you won't regret this. Music has a way of surprising us. The second call was harder. He called a 15-year-old girl named Sarah Williams who had written to SpaceX asking for a signed photo. Sarah had cancer and dreamed of living long enough to see humans land on Mars. Her mother answered the phone. Mrs. Williams, this is Elon Musk. I wanted to talk to Sarah about something special. When Sarah came on the line, her voice was weak, but excited. Mr. Musk, are you really going to get us to Mars? I'm trying my best, Sarah, but I called because I'm doing something scary next month, and I wanted to dedicate it to you. He told her about the performance, about how terrified he was, about how sometimes the most important things we do are the things that scare us most. Mr. Musk, Sarah said, I'm scared every day about whether I'll get better. But my mom says, being scared doesn't mean being brave is impossible. It just means brave is harder. After hanging up, Elon sat in his car outside the retirement home, holding his grandmother's guitar. Through the windshield, he could see Jacob waving from his window. The old man was right. This wasn't about proving he was a good musician. This was about honoring his grandmother's belief that music could build bridges between hearts, even across impossible distances, even between a scared billionaire and a dying girl who both dreamed of reaching the stars. The next morning, Elon found himself back at Sunset Manor, carrying his grandmother's guitar and a notebook full of questions. Jacob was waiting in the garden, sitting in his wheelchair under an old oak tree. Ready to begin? The elderly teacher asked, his eyes twinkling with the same excitement Elon remembered from 30 years ago. I don't know what I'm ready for, Elon admitted, sitting on a nearby bench. But I know I can't do this alone. Jacob nodded slowly. Good. The first lesson is admitting you need help. Now, play something for me. Anything. Elon took out his grandmother's guitar and tried to remember a simple song. His fingers found the chords, but the music sounded mechanical, like a computer playing notes without understanding why. Stop, Jacob said gently after a few measures. What are you thinking about while you play? The chord progressions. Making sure my fingers hit the right frets. Not making mistakes. And what are you feeling? Elon paused. Nervous. Afraid I'll mess up. Jacob wheeled his chair closer. Elon, music is not about avoiding mistakes. It's about telling truth. Your grandmother understood this when she played for mixed audiences during apartheid. She wasn't thinking about perfect technique. She was thinking about bringing people together. Over the next hour, Jacob made Elon play the same simple melody over and over. But each time, instead of focusing on technique, Jacob asked him to think about a memory or feeling. Play it like you're remembering your grandmother's laugh, Jacob instructed. The music softened, became warmer. Now play it like you're looking at the stars and dreaming of Mars. The melody grew stronger, more hopeful. Again, but this time think about Sarah Williams, lying in her hospital bed, wishing she could see the future you're building. This time, the music carried weight. It carried purpose. There, Jacob said with satisfaction. That's the difference between playing notes and making music. They met every day for a week. Each session, Jacob pushed Elon not to play better, but to play more honestly. Some days were harder than others. On Wednesday, Elon arrived frustrated after a difficult meeting at Tesla. Nothing seemed to be working right. Production delays, supply chain problems, investor complaints. I can't do this today, he told Jacob. slumping on the bench. My head's too full of problems. Perfect, Jacob replied. Play your problems. What do you mean? Your grandmother played during apartheid, remember? You think she wasn't full of problems? Fear, anger, sadness? She didn't. Wait for perfect days to make music. She used music to transform the difficult days. Jacob showed Elon how to channel frustration into music, how to let anger become power in his playing, how to turn sadness into something beautiful instead of just painful. Music doesn't ask us to forget our pain, Jacob explained as Elon played. A melody that somehow captured his stress about Tesla's struggles. It asks us to transform pain into something that connects us to others who understand. By Friday, something had changed. Elon's playing was still imperfect, but it had heart. When he played, people walking through the retirement home garden would stop and listen. Nurses would pause their work. Other residents would wheel their chairs closer. Why do they stop? Elon asked Jacob after an elderly woman had sat quietly through an entire song, tears in her eyes. Because you're not hiding anymore, Jacob replied. You're letting them see who you really are. That's what music does. It makes invisible connections visible. That weekend, Elon practiced at home for hours. But something strange happened. The more he played, the calmer he felt about his company's problems. The music seemed to organize his thoughts, help him see solutions he'd missed before. On Monday, he walked into a SpaceX meeting with a completely new approach to the heat shield problem. Instead of fighting the physics, he found a way to work with them. The team was amazed at his sudden clarity. Boss, what happened? Marcus Chin asked after the successful meeting. You seem different. Elon almost told him about the music lessons, but stopped himself. He wasn't ready for that conversation, yet Tuesday's lesson with Jacob was different. Instead of working on technique, the old teacher wanted to talk about fear. Tell me about the worst performance experience you ever had, Jacob said. Elon thought back to college. There was this coffee shop in Philadelphia. Open mic night. I'd been taking lessons with you for 6 months, and I thought I was ready. But when I got on stage, what happened? I froze. Completely. I could see all these faces looking at me, waiting. My hands started shaking. I played maybe 30 seconds before I had to stop and leave. Jacob nodded knowingly. And what did you tell yourself about that experience? That I wasn't good enough. That I was embarrassing myself. That I should stick to things I was actually good at. And you believed that story for 30 years. Elon realized he was gripping the guitar neck too tightly. Yes. What if I told you a different story about that night? Jacob asked. What if I told you that a young woman in the audience went home and picked up her own guitar for the first time in months because your 30 seconds of honest, imperfect music reminded her why she loved playing? Did that really happen? I don't know, Jacob admitted. But it could have. That's what real music does, Elon. It doesn't have to be perfect to touch someone's heart. Sometimes imperfection is exactly what people need to hear. They worked on breathing exercises, ways to stay calm under pressure. Jacob taught Elon that nervousness wasn't the enemy of good performance. It was proof that what you're doing matters. The butterflies in your stomach aren't trying to stop you, Jacob explained. They're trying to wake you up, to make you present for something important. By the end of the second week, Elon was playing pieces he'd never imagined he could handle. Not because his technique had dramatically improved, but because he'd stopped fighting the music and started trusting it. But the real test came when Jacob made an unexpected announcement. Next week, we're going to have an audience, he said casually. Elon's hands froze on the strings. What do you mean? Some of the other residents have been asking if they can listen to your lessons. Mrs. Patterson in room 12 says your music reminds her of songs her late husband used to play. Mr. Rodriguez wants to hear that melody you've been working on. The old fear came rushing back. Jacob, I'm not ready for an audience. What if I mess up? Then you mess up in front of people who understand that messing up is part of being human, Jacob replied gently. Elon, you can't spend your whole life practicing in private. Music is meant to be shared. That night, Elon called Sarah Williams. Her mother said Sarah was having a difficult week with her treatments, but she was excited to hear from him. Mr. Musk, Sarah's weak voice came through the phone. How's your guitar practice going? Scary, Elon admitted. My teacher wants me to play for other people next week. That sounds terrifying, Sarah said, but also kind of exciting. I've been thinking about what you said, about being scared and brave at the same time. What about it? Well, I'm scared about my treatments. but I'm also excited about the possibility of getting better. Maybe scary and exciting can happen together." After they hung up, Elon sat with his grandmother's guitar, thinking about Sarah's words. Scared and excited together. Maybe that's what courage really was. Not the absence of fear, but the willingness to feel fear and excitement at the same time that he picked up the guitar and began to play. Outside his window, the Texas stars were bright and clear, the same stars he wanted to help humanity reach someday. Maybe music and space exploration weren't so different after all. Both required courage to venture into the unknown, trusting that something beautiful waited on the other side of fear. 2 weeks before the Los Angeles Philharmonic Gala, Elon stood outside Walt Disney Concert Hall, staring up at the gleaming metal curves of the building. His hands were sweating as he gripped his grandmother's guitar case. "This is it," he whispered to himself. First rehearsal with a real orchestra. Maria Santos met him at the stage door, her warm smile doing little to calm his nerves. "Mr. Musk, welcome to Disney Hall. Are you ready to make some music?" Elon followed her through hallways lined with photos of famous musicians. Each face seemed to judge him as he passed. What was he doing here among these legends? The concert hall took his breath away. 2,000 empty seats rose in curved rows toward a ceiling that seemed to touch the sky. On stage, 90 musicians were tuning their instruments, creating a beautiful chaos of sound. "Don't worry about the size," Maria said, noticing his wide eyes. "When you're making music, the space becomes intimate. You'll see." But Elon barely heard her. He was imagining those seats filled with people, all watching him, waiting for him to fail. The rehearsal began with the orchestra playing alone. Elon sat in the wings, listening to the powerful waves of sound washing over the empty hall. These musicians were masters of their craft. What was he compared to them? "Mr. Musk?" Maria appeared beside him. "Time for your sound check." Elon's legs felt weak as he walked onto the stage. Under the bright lights, the empty seats looked like an ocean of judgment. He sat on the simple stool Maria had placed center stage and pulled out his guitar. "Just play through your piece once," Maria called from the conductor's podium. "Don't worry about perfection. This is just to balance the sound." Elon had chosen The Sound of Silence, a song his grandmother used to play on quiet evenings in Pretoria. He'd been practicing it for weeks with Jacob, and it had started to feel natural, meaningful. But now, under the lights with 90 professional musicians watching, his mind went blank. He began to play, but his timing was completely off. The orchestra tried to follow him, but Elon kept speeding up and slowing down without warning. His fingers, which had felt confident in Jacob's garden, now fumbled across the frets like they belonged to someone else. Halfway through the song, he stopped completely. "I'm sorry," he said into the microphone, his voice echoing through the empty hall. "Can we start over?" "Of course," Maria said gently. "Take your time." But the second attempt was worse. Elon's hands were shaking now, and sweat dripped onto his guitar. He could hear whispers from the orchestra members behind him. Someone's phone was definitely recording. That be why the third attempt. Elon was barely making music at all. The song that had moved people to tears in the retirement home garden now sounded like a broken machine trying to remember how to work. "Maybe we should take a break," Maria suggested, but it was too late. Elon saw the flash of a camera phone from the balcony. Someone had snuck into the supposedly private rehearsal. Within minutes, videos would be spreading across the internet. "I can't do this," Elon said, standing abruptly. "I'm sorry, Ms. Santos. I thought I was ready, but I'm not." He grabbed his guitar case and rushed off stage, ignoring Maria's calls behind him. The drive back to his hotel was a blur of shame and regret. By the time he reached his room, his phone was already buzzing with notifications. The videos were everywhere. Musk's musical meltdown at Disney Hall read the first headline. The footage showed him stopping mid-song, looking lost and confused on the massive stage. Comments poured in by the thousands. "This is what happens when you have too much money and not enough talent. Stick to rockets, Elon. Leave music to real musicians." Secondhand embarrassment watching this. But the worst came from Victor Chun, CEO of a rival tech company, who posted on Twitter, "Watching Elon Musk try to play guitar is like watching someone try to land on Mars with a paper airplane. Some dreams are just too big for some people. Maybe it's time for a reality check instead of a midlife crisis. Hashtag stick to what you know, The post went viral immediately, shared thousands of times within an hour. Elon threw his phone across the hotel room and sat on the bed, his head in his hands. He'd made a fool of himself in front of the world's greatest musicians. Worse, he'd probably ruined any chance the gala had of raising money for music education. His phone rang. It was Gwen. "Elon, I'm so sorry," she said. "I know this isn't what you wanted. I should withdraw from the performance," Elon said quietly. "Save everyone the embarrassment." "Maybe that would be best," Gwen agreed. "For the companies, I mean." The stock price dropped 2% after the videos went viral. After hanging up, Elon called Maria Santos to apologize and withdraw from the gala. But Maria refused to accept his resignation. "Elon," she said firmly, "I've worked with professional musicians my entire career. Yes, your technique needs work. But there's something in your playing that can't be taught: authenticity. Don't let the noise drown out the music." "Did you see the videos? I was a disaster. I saw someone having a human moment under enormous pressure. Do you know what I also saw? I saw the orchestra members' faces when you played that first chord. Before the nerves took over, there was something beautiful there." That evening, as Elon sat alone in his Austin mansion, his phone chimed with a text message. It was a video from Sarah Williams. In the video, Sarah was propped up in her hospital bed, looking pale but determined. "Mr. Musk," she said, her voice weak but clear, "my mom showed me the rehearsal footage. She said people are being mean about your guitar playing on the internet." Sarah paused to catch her breath before continuing. "But I think you're brave. I wish I could be brave like you. My doctors say my treatments aren't working as well as they hoped. I'm scared I won't get to see humans land on Mars like you promised." Tears were forming in her eyes now. "But you know what? Sometimes the hardest thing isn't succeeding. Sometimes the hardest thing is just trying when everyone expects you to fail. You tried, Mr. Musk. That makes you braver than all the people making jokes on their computers." The video ended with Sarah holding up a drawing she'd made of a rocket ship flying toward a guitar-shaped planet. "Maybe music and space dreams can both come true," she whispered. Elon watched the video 3 times, crying harder each time. Here was a 16-year-old girl facing death, and she was worried about encouraging him. That night, Jacob called. "I saw the rehearsal footage," the old teacher said without preamble. "Then you know I should quit," Elon replied. "I know you had a panic attack on stage in front of 90 musicians and a few thousand empty seats. So what? So what?" "Jacob, I humiliated myself. The whole world is laughing. The whole world laughed at your grandmother too, when she insisted on playing for mixed audiences during apartheid. They said she was foolish, dangerous, that she should know her place." Jacob's voice grew stronger. "But she kept playing, Elon. Not because she was perfect, but because the music mattered more than the mockery. But I don't have her courage. Courage isn't the absence of fear, my boy. It's playing the next note, even when your hands are shaking." After the call ended, Elon walked to his window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there was Mars, the planet he'd spent his life trying to reach. Every rocket launch he'd attempted had faced criticism, setbacks, even explosions. But he'd kept building, kept trying. Because the mission mattered more than the failures. Maybe music was the same way. He picked up his grandmother's guitar and began to play The Sound of Silence, the same song that had fallen apart at rehearsal. This time, in the quiet of his home, it sounded like a promise to Sarah, to his grandmother, and to every dreamer who'd ever been told their dreams were too big. The performance was still 2 weeks away. Maybe that was enough time to remember that the most important audience wasn't the critics or the cameras, that it was the part of himself that still believed in reaching for impossible things. The next morning, Elon drove back to Sunset Manor with heavy steps. He expected Jacob to be disappointed, maybe even angry about the failed rehearsal. Instead, he found the old teacher sitting in his room with a mysterious smile and an ancient cassette player on his desk. "I have something to show you," Jacob said without greeting. "Something I've been saving for the right moment." Elon slumped into the chair across from Jacob's desk. "If this is meant to make me feel better about yesterday, I don't think anything can help." Jacob held up a cassette tape, its label faded but still readable. Elon Musk, The Java Joint Coffee House, March 15th, 1992. Elon's heart stopped. "Where did you get that?" "I recorded it myself," Jacob said, sliding the tape into the Old player, you were 21, scared out of your mind, but determined to play your original song for a live audience. Jacob, please don't. I remember that night. It was terrible. Was it? Jacob pressed play. The sound quality was scratchy, but Elon's voice came through clearly, young and uncertain, but honest. The guitar playing was simple but beautiful, and when his voice joined in, singing about leaving home and dreaming of stars, the coffee shop fell completely silent. The song was called Stranger in the Sky. It told the story of a young man who felt like an alien on his own planet, who looked up at the stars and wondered if somewhere out there was a place where dreamers belonged. Elon listened in shock. This wasn't the disaster he remembered. This was beautiful, raw, honest, and deeply moving. The audience that night gave you a standing ovation, Jacob said softly. People were crying. A young woman approached me afterward and said your song made her feel less alone in the world. But I remember being terrified. I remember feeling like I failed. Jacob stopped the tape and leaned forward. You were terrified. You did feel like you failed. But Elon, you were also magnificent. Fear and beauty can exist in the same moment. Jacob pulled out a worn folder from his desk drawer. Inside were newspaper clippings, photos, and handwritten notes. After that performance, you came to my office the next week and told me you were done with music. You said the world needed engineers and entrepreneurs, not another struggling musician with impossible dreams. Elon remembered that conversation. His father had called him the day after the coffee house performance. Elon Musk had somehow heard about it and spent 20 minutes explaining why music was a waste of time for dreamers who can't face reality. You were running from something, Jacob continued. Not from music, but from the vulnerability that music required. Your father's voice was louder than your grandmother's in your head. Jacob showed Elon a photo from that night at the coffee house. Young Elon sat on a tiny stage, guitar in his lap, singing with his eyes closed. Behind him, barely visible in the dim light, was a small crowd of college students, all leaning forward, completely absorbed in the music. Look at their faces, Jacob said. That's not polite listening. That's connection. Real, human connection. But Jacob wasn't finished. He pulled out another photo that made Elon gasp. This was taken during your song, Jacob explained. The photo showed the coffee house audience, and in the front row, barely visible, was a young girl in a wheelchair. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old, and she was staring at young Elon with wonder. Elon looked closer at the photo. There was something familiar about the girl, but he couldn't place it. Her hospital bracelet says Sarah W. Jacob pointed out gently. She was there with a group from Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. They brought young patients to community events as part of their therapy program. Elon's hands trembled as he held the photograph. Sarah Williams was there? But that's impossible. She would have been 6 years old, Jacob confirmed. Receiving treatment for childhood leukemia. According to the hospital records I tracked down, she went into remission shortly after that night. Her mother later told nurses that a song she heard at a coffee shop gave her hope that impossible dreams could come true. The room went silent except for the ticking of Jacob's old clock. Elon stared at the photo, seeing the connection that had been invisible for 30 years. She never forgot that night, Jacob continued. When Sarah started following SpaceX years later, she told her mother about a memory of hearing someone sing about reaching the stars. Her mother recognized the story when Sarah got excited about Elon Musk's Mars missions. Jacob played more of the tape. After the applause died down, young Elon's voice could be heard talking to the audience. I wrote this song because sometimes I feel like I don't belong on this planet. But maybe that's okay. Maybe some of us are meant to build bridges to other worlds, for all the people who feel like strangers here too. Sarah's mother was in the audience that night, Jacob revealed. She was a single mom, working 2 jobs, bringing her sick daughter to free community events because they couldn't afford much else. She told me later that your words gave her hope. During the darkest time of their lives, Elon could barely breathe. The girl who had inspired him to continue preparing for the gala, the girl who was now dying and dreaming of Mars, had been touched by his music 30 years ago when she was fighting for her life as a child. Why didn't you tell me this before? Elon whispered. Because you weren't ready to hear it, Jacob replied. You needed to rediscover your own reasons for making music before you could understand how it had already changed lives. Jacob pulled out one more item, a letter written in a child's handwriting. Dear Guitar Man, my name is Sarah, and I am 6. I heard you sing about the stars at the coffee place. My mom says I'm sick, but your song made me feel like flying. When I grow up, I want to see the stars like you sang about. Thank you for making me feel not scared. Love, Sarah. The letter was addressed to the Guitar Man at Java Joint, but had never been delivered. Jacob had found it years later in a box of items donated by the Children's Hospital. She tried to find you, Jacob said gently. A 6-year-old girl, fighting cancer, wanted to thank the stranger who sang about reaching for impossible dreams. Elon was crying now, holding the letter and the photo. Everything he thought he knew about that night, about his music, about his connection to Sarah Williams, had been turned upside down. Your music has been traveling across time and space for 30 years, Jacob said. It found its way to a sick little girl and gave her hope. Then it circled back to you when you needed hope most. But I stopped playing after that night. I abandoned music. You thought you abandoned it. But music doesn't abandon us, Elon. It waits. It finds other ways to work through our lives. Every rocket you've built, every electric car you've designed, every dream you've chased, that's all music too. It's all about reaching across impossible distances to connect with something greater. Jacob rewound the tape to the beginning. Your grandmother left you that guitar not because she wanted you to become a professional musician. She left it because she knew you would need music to stay human while you changed the world. As young Elon's voice filled the room again, singing about being a stranger in the sky, Jacob made a proposal that would change everything. I want you to play this song at the gala, he said. Not The Sound of Silence. This song, the one you wrote for dreamers and strangers and 6-year-old girls fighting impossible battles. But it's 30 years old. It's about a scared young man who didn't know what he was doing. Exactly, Jacob smiled. It's about courage in the face of the unknown. It's about believing in impossible dreams. It's about a boy who felt like an alien on Earth but never stopped reaching for the stars. Elon looked at the photo of little Sarah Williams, sitting in her wheelchair, looking up at him with hope and wonder. The song that had connected them 30 years ago was calling them back together, across time and space. For one final performance, a performance that might be Sarah's last chance to hear someone sing about the dreams that had kept her going through 3 decades of fighting for life. Will she be strong enough to attend the gala? Elon asked quietly. Jacob's expression grew serious. I don't know, but whether she's there in person or in spirit, she deserves to hear the song that saved her life when she was 6 years old. Elon held his grandmother's guitar and thought about the impossible connections that music made across time. Maybe it was time to honor not just his grandmother's memory, but the memory of that terrified young man who had sung about reaching for the stars when he had no idea how far his voice would travel. That evening, Elon sat in his Austin mansion, staring at his phone. Sarah Williams' number was on the screen, but his finger hovered over the call button. How do you tell a dying 16-year-old that you met when she was 6, fighting for her life, and your song somehow helped save her? Finally, he pressed call. Hello, Sarah's mother answered, her voice tired. Mrs. Williams, this is Elon Musk. Is Sarah available to talk? I have something important to share with her. She's having a difficult day, Mr. Musk. The doctors, well, they've told us to prepare for the worst. But she's been asking about your performance. She'd love to hear from you. When Sarah came on the line, her voice was barely a whisper. Mr. Musk, are you really going to play at that fancy concert hall? I want to, Sarah. But first, I need to ask you something strange. Do you remember being very young and hearing someone play guitar at a coffee shop? There was a long pause. That's weird. I was just thinking about that yesterday. I was maybe 6. My mom took me to this little place with music. There was a young man with a guitar who sang about stars and feeling different. Elon's heart raced. What do you remember about that night? I remember his song made me feel like being different wasn't bad. Like maybe some people are supposed to dream bigger dreams. I was so sick then, Mr. Musk. But that song made me believe I might see the stars someday. Elon closed his eyes, holding back tears. Sarah, I need to tell you something amazing. That young man singing about the stars? That was me. You were there when I played my first real performance 30 years ago. The silence stretched so long that Elon worried the call had dropped. Then he heard Sarah crying. That was you, she whispered. All these years, I've been following SpaceX because you reminded me of that guitar player. I never imagined they were the same person. Your presence that night changed my life too, Sarah. I just didn't know it until yesterday." Sarah's mother had picked up another phone and was listening. "Mr. Musk," she said through her own tears, "I was there that night. I remember you perfectly." Sarah talked about your song for months afterward. During her worst treatment days, she would ask me to sing the part about reaching for the stars. "Mrs. Williams, did you know Sarah wrote me a letter after that performance? She tried to find you. She made me take her back to that coffee shop 3 times, hoping you'd be there." Again, for the next hour, Elon and Sarah shared memories and dreams. Sarah told him about watching every SpaceX launch, about her models of Mars rovers, about her hope that humans would reach the red planet even if she couldn't be there to see it. "Mr. Musk," Sarah said as their conversation wound down, "will you promise me something? Anything. When you play at the big concert, will you think about the stars? Because even if I can't get to Mars, maybe the music can reach that far. Maybe someone else who feels like a stranger will hear it and know they're not alone." After hanging up, Elon called Maria Santos immediately. "Maria, I need to change everything about the performance." "What do you mean?" "I want to play an original song. Something I wrote 30 years ago. It's called Stranger in the Sky. And it's about a girl named Sarah who taught me that impossible dreams are the only ones worth chasing." Maria was quiet for a moment. "Elon, are you sure? Original compositions are much harder to perform than covers. The orchestra would need new arrangements. I'll pay for everything. Extra rehearsal time, new sheet music, whatever it takes. This isn't just a performance anymore, Maria. It's a promise I made to a 6-year-old girl without knowing it." Over the next 3 days, Elon worked with Maria and the Philharmonic's arrangers to create an orchestral version of Stranger in the Sky. The process was unlike anything he'd experienced. Instead of building rockets or designing cars, he was building bridges of sound that could carry emotions across impossible distances. Jacob came to every arrangement session, helping Elon remember the original melody and encouraging him to add new verses about his journey from that scared young man to someone actually trying to make Mars reachable. "The song should tell the whole story," Jacob suggested. "From feeling like a stranger on Earth to working to give strangers a new world to call home." The new verses spoke of rockets rising toward red planets, of electric cars reducing Earth's burden, of dreams that seemed impossible until someone decided to make them real. But they also spoke of fear, of failure, of learning that vulnerability was not weakness but the foundation of all human connection. During one late-night session, Elon's phone rang. It was Sarah's mother. "Mr. Musk, I have news," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "Sarah's condition has worsened. The doctors don't think she'll be able to attend the gala." Elon felt the world tilt. "How long do they think?" "Days, maybe a week. But Mr. Musk, she has a request. She wants to hear the song, your original song, even if she can't be there in person." That night, Elon set up a video call from his music room. Sarah appeared on screen, propped up in her hospital bed, looking pale but alert. Her mother sat beside her, along with several nurses who had heard about the connection and wanted to listen. "This is for you, Sarah," Elon said, picking up his grandmother's guitar. "This is the song that brought us together 30 years ago, and it's the song that will connect us forever." He began to play Stranger in the Sky, but this version was different from the coffee shop recording. It carried 30 years of experience, of rockets launched and dreams pursued, of understanding that feeling like a stranger on Earth was just the first step toward finding your true home among the stars. Sarah listened with tears streaming down her face. When Elon reached the new verses about Mars and making multiple planets home for humanity, she smiled the biggest smile he'd seen from her yet. "Mr. Musk," she said when the song ended, "that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. It's like you took my dreams and put them in music. Sarah, you gave me those dreams. That 6-year-old girl sitting in a wheelchair, believing in impossible things. She's been guiding every rocket I've built." After the call ended, Elon sat alone with his guitar. In 5 days, he would perform this song for 2,000 people at one of the world's most prestigious concert halls. Critics would be watching, cameras would be recording, and his reputation would be on the line, but none of that mattered now. The only audience that truly counted was a 16-year-old girl who might not live to hear the performance, but whose spirit would be in every note. He picked up his phone and sent a message. To Maria Santos, whatever happens at the gala, Sarah Williams will be there with us. Make sure there's an empty seat in the front row with her name on it. Maria's response came immediately. Already taken care of. And Elon, this isn't going to be a performance anymore. It's going to be a celebration of every dreamer who ever looked up at the stars and decided to reach. As Elon practiced late into the night, he realized that the scared young man from 30 years ago and the dying girl who believed in Mars were the same person in different bodies, strangers in the sky, reaching for home among the stars. The song that had started as one person's cry of loneliness had become an anthem for anyone who had ever felt different, anyone who had ever dared to dream of impossible things that in 5 days. That anthem would fill Walt Disney Concert Hall, carrying the dreams of a grandmother who played for forbidden audiences, a Holocaust survivor who taught courage through music, and a girl whose belief in reaching Mars had guided humanity's greatest dreamer back to his own heart. The day of the Los Angeles Philharmonic Gala arrived gray and drizzly, as if the sky itself was nervous. Elon stood at his hotel window, watching people hurry past with umbrellas, and wondered if this was a sign that he should have stayed home. Walt Disney Concert Hall looked different in the evening light. The metal curves that had seemed imposing during his disastrous rehearsal now glowed warmly against the dark sky. Red carpets stretched from the street to the entrance, and photographers were already setting up their cameras. Inside his dressing room, Elon stared at his reflection in the mirror. He wore a simple black suit, and his grandmother's guitar leaned against the wall behind him. On the small table sat a framed photo that Jacob had given him. The picture of 6-year-old Sarah Williams sitting in her wheelchair at the coffee shop, looking up at young Elon with wonder that a soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. Musk?" It was Maria Santos. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified," Elon admitted. "Completely terrified." Maria smiled gently. "Good. That means this matters to you." Through the dressing room walls, Elon could hear the murmur of 2,000 people taking their seats. Tech leaders, celebrities, musicians, critics, all waiting to see if the man who built rockets could also make music. "Is the empty seat ready?" Elon asked. "Front row, center. There's a small placard that says, 'Reserved for Sarah Williams, Dreamer of Mars.' Her parents arrived an hour ago." Elon's heart clenched. "How is she?" Maria's expression grew sad. "She passed away yesterday morning, Elon. Peacefully, listening to a recording of your song. Her mother wanted you to know that your music was the last thing she heard." The room went silent except for the sound of Elon's breathing. Sarah was gone. The girl who had inspired this entire journey, who had connected his past and present across 30 years, would never hear him perform their song in the great concert hall. "I can't do this," Elon whispered, sinking into a chair. "The whole reason for tonight was Sarah. Without her, with her," Maria corrected firmly. "Elon, she's not gone. She's in every note of that song, in every dream of reaching Mars, in every moment when someone feels like a stranger and decides to keep reaching for the stars anyway." Another knock came at the door. Jacob Bernstein appeared, looking frail but determined. At 89, he had insisted on attending despite his doctor's warnings. "It's time," Jacob said simply. "Are you ready?" "I don't think I'll ever be ready." "Good," Jacob replied with a small smile. "Your grandmother was never ready to play for mixed audiences during apartheid. I was never ready to survive the camps or teach music afterward. Sarah was never ready to fight cancer for 16 years. Ready is not the point, Elon. Courage is the point." As they walked toward the stage, Elon could hear the orchestra tuning their instruments. 90 of the world's finest musicians, all prepared to follow his lead on a song he'd written as a scared young man 30 years ago. The backstage area was bustling with activity. Stage hands checked microphones, lighting technicians adjusted spotlights, and orchestra members practiced difficult passages one last time. 5 minutes, Mr. Musk, a stage manager called out. Elon found a quiet corner and closed his eyes. He thought about his grandmother Cora, playing guitar in secret clubs, using music to bring people together when the law said they should stay apart. He thought about Jacob, teaching him that music was about truth, not perfection. He thought about Sarah, believing in Mars from a hospital bed, never giving up on impossible dreams. Mr. Musk, it was Sarah's mother, Linda Williams. She approached, with red eyes but a brave smile. Mrs. Williams, I'm so sorry about Sarah. I should have played for her sooner, should have. Stop, Linda said gently. Sarah died happy, Elon. She died believing that humans would reach Mars because of you. She died knowing that her childhood hero and her adult inspiration were the same person. What more could a mother ask for? Linda handed him a small piece of paper. She wrote this for you yesterday, during her last good hour. Elon unfolded the note, written in Sarah's shaky handwriting. Dear Mr. Musk, thank you for teaching me that being different means being important. Tonight when you play our song, remember that every person in that audience is a little bit of a stranger too. Help them feel less alone, like you helped me. Love from Mars, Sarah Williams P.S. Play loud enough for me to hear it up here. Elon wiped his eyes and looked at Linda. She really believed we'd make it to Mars. She never doubted it for a second. She said anyone brave enough to sing about impossible dreams in a coffee shop would definitely be brave enough to build rockets. To make them real. Places, everyone, the stage manager called. Elon walked to the wings and peered out at the audience. 2,000 faces looked back at the stage, some curious, some skeptical, some genuinely excited. In the front row, he could see the empty chair with Sarah's placard, flanked by her parents and Jacob. The orchestra was taking their positions. Maria Santos walked to the conductor's podium and raised her baton. The hall fell silent. Ladies and gentlemen, Maria's voice carried clearly through the space. Tonight we celebrate hidden talents and the courage to share them. Our guest performer wrote tonight's song 30 years ago as a young man who felt like a stranger on his own planet. That song inspired a 6-year-old girl fighting cancer to dream of reaching Mars. Tonight, we honor both the dreamer and the dream. Maria nodded to Elon. This was it. Elon walked onto the stage, carrying his grandmother's guitar. Under the bright lights, the audience stretched out like an ocean. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, he felt something unexpected. Peace. He sat on the simple stool center stage and adjusted the microphone. Looking out at the crowd, he spoke directly to them, his voice steady and clear. 30 years ago, I played this song for the first time at a little coffee shop in Philadelphia. I was terrified then, just like I'm terrified now. But there was a 6-year-old girl in the audience that night who taught me that being scared and being brave can happen at the same time. He looked directly at Sarah's empty chair. This song is called Stranger in the Sky, and it's for everyone who has ever felt different, everyone who has ever looked up at the stars and wondered if there's a place where dreamers belong. Elon placed his fingers on the guitar strings and took a deep breath. In that moment of silence before the first note, he could feel them all: his grandmother's courage, Jacob's wisdom, Sarah's unshakable faith in impossible dreams. The opening chord rang out clear and true, filling the vast concert hall. The orchestra joined him, and together they began to weave the story of strangers reaching for the sky, of dreams that seemed impossible until someone decided to make them real. Elon's voice, no longer the uncertain sound from his viral video, carried across the silent audience. He sang about feeling like an alien on Earth, about finding purpose in the stars, about building bridges across impossible distances. As the song built to its climax, with new verses about rockets and Mars and electric cars powered by sunlight, something magical happened. The audience stopped being observers and became participants. They weren't just listening to a performance. They were witnessing a promise being kept across time and space. When the final note faded into silence, the hall remained absolutely still. Then, slowly, the applause began. But this wasn't polite concert applause. This was something deeper: recognition, connection, shared understanding that they had all just experienced something rare and real. The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. But more importantly, Elon could see in the faces before him the same expression that 6-year-old Sarah had worn 30 years ago: wonder, hope, and the belief that impossible things might actually be possible. That eye in the front row, Sarah's empty chair seemed to shimmer in the stage lights, as if her spirit was applauding too. Finally hearing the song that had saved her life played by the man whose dreams she had helped guide to the stars, the 7-minute standing ovation finally began to fade. But Elon remained on stage, holding his grandmother's guitar and looking out at the sea of faces. Many people were wiping their eyes. Others were still applauding softly, as if they didn't want the moment to end. Then something unexpected happened. Dr. Jacob Bernstein, despite his age and frailty, slowly rose from his wheelchair in the front row. With great effort, he began making his way toward the stage. The audience watched in curious silence as stage hands helped the 89-year-old man up the steps. Elon rushed to help Jacob reach the microphone at center stage. The old teacher's eyes were bright with tears and something else, a secret he had carried for 30 years. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jacob began, his voice trembling but strong, "I must tell you something about the man you just heard perform." The audience settled back into their seats, sensing that something important was about to be revealed. 50 years ago, I was a young music teacher at the University of Pennsylvania, Jacob continued. I had survived the Holocaust, and music had saved my life in the darkest places. I dedicated my life to teaching others that music could heal, could connect, could transform pain into beauty. Elon stood beside Jacob, confused about where this was leading. In 1990, I had a student who was brilliant, passionate, and absolutely terrified of showing his heart to the world. That student was Elon Musk. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Several people pulled out their phones, but something in Jacob's tone made them pause before recording. "But there's something else you should know." Jacob's voice grew stronger. "That young man didn't just learn music from me. He taught me something far more important." Jacob turned to face Elon directly. "In 1992, I was struggling with severe depression, survivor's guilt from the camps, despair about the world's capacity for cruelty. I had begun to believe that music was just noise, that beauty was an illusion in a world full of suffering." The concert hall was absolutely silent now. Even the orchestra members were leaning forward to listen. Then one night, I attended a small performance at a coffee shop in Philadelphia. A young man took the stage with a guitar and sang about feeling like a stranger on earth, about finding purpose in dreams of reaching the stars. His voice cracked with fear, his hands shook, but his song, Jacob paused, overwhelmed by memory. His song reminded me why I had survived. It reminded me that we all feel like aliens sometimes, and that's what makes us human. That's what connects us to each other and to something greater. Elon felt his knees weaken. He had never known about Jacob's depression, had never imagined that his clumsy coffee shop performance had meant anything to anyone. "That song," Jacob continued, "saved my life. It gave me the strength to continue teaching, to continue believing in music's power to heal. For 30 years, I've used the memory of that performance to inspire my students, to remind them that perfect technique means nothing without courage and truth." But Jacob wasn't finished. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an old photograph, holding it up for the audience to see. "This picture was taken that night at the coffee shop," he announced. "It shows the audience listening to Elon's performance. But look closely at the front row. On the large screens around the concert hall, the photograph appeared magnified. The image was grainy, but clear enough to see young Elon on the tiny stage and the small crowd watching him with rapt attention. In the front row," Jacob pointed, "you can see a young girl in a wheelchair. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Her hospital bracelet reads Sarah W. She was there with a group from Children's Hospital of Philadelphia." Gasps echoed through the audience as people realized what Jacob was revealing. "That little girl was Sarah Williams," Jacob announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "The same Sarah Williams who grew up to follow SpaceX, who dreamed of seeing humans reach Mars, who inspired tonight's performance. She died yesterday, but not before learning that her childhood hero and her adult inspiration were the same person." The audience was stunned into absolute silence. Several people were openly crying now, including Maria Santos at the conductor's podium. Jacob continued, his voice growing more emotional. "For 30 years, Elon's music has been traveling through time and space, connecting souls who never knew they were connected. That 6-year-old girl carried the memory of his song through 16 years of fighting cancer. His music gave her hope during her darkest moments, inspired her to dream of Mars, to believe in impossible things." He turned back to Elon, who was now crying openly on stage. "And when that little girl grew up and started following your space missions, she was unknowingly following the same voice that had given her hope as a child. She was following the song that saved her life." Jacob pulled out another item from his jacket, a letter written in a child's shaky handwriting. This is a letter Sarah tried to send to the guitar man at Java Joint in 1992. She was 6 years old, fighting for her life, but she wanted to thank the stranger who sang about reaching for the stars. Jacob read from the letter, "Dear Guitar, Man, your song made me feel like flying. When I grow up, I want to see the stars like you sang about. Thank you for making me feel not scared." The silence in the concert hall was complete. Even the orchestra members were wiping their eyes. "Music doesn't just entertain," Jacob said, his voice now strong and clear. "Music creates invisible threads that connect us across impossible distances. Tonight, you witnessed the completion of a circle that began 30 years ago with a scared young man, a sick little girl, and a song about reaching for the stars." Jacob looked out at the audience with fierce pride. Elon Musk didn't just perform for you tonight. He fulfilled a promise made to a 6-year-old girl who believed that strangers in the sky could find their way home. The old teacher turned to face Elon one last time. "Your grandmother would be proud. Your music has done exactly what she said it would. It has connected souls across any distance." What happened next was unlike anything in Walt Disney Concert Hall's history. The audience didn't just applaud, they erupted. People were standing, crying, shouting, reaching toward the stage as if they could touch the invisible threads Jacob had described. But more than that, something had shifted in the room. Everyone present understood that they had witnessed something far beyond a musical performance. They had seen the power of human connection across time, the way art and dreams and courage could weave together to create meaning in an often meaningless world. The ovation continued for 12 minutes. But it wasn't really applause anymore. It was a celebration of every dreamer who had ever felt like a stranger, every sick child who had ever looked up at the stars, every teacher who had ever believed in the transformative power of truth and beauty. In the front row, Sarah's empty chair no longer seemed empty. It seemed to glow with the presence of every connection that music had ever made, every dream that had ever been passed from one generation to the next, every impossible thing that had become possible because someone had the courage to sing about it first. When the applause finally ended, Elon and Jacob stood together on the stage, holding each other up, surrounded by the kind of silence that can only follow a moment when the whole world has been reminded of what it means to be human. The secret that had taken 30 years to reveal had transformed not just Elon's understanding of his own music, but everyone's understanding of how dreams travel through time, connecting strangers across impossible distances until they discover they were never really strangers at all. The morning after the gala, Elon woke to a world that had changed overnight. His phone showed 847 missed calls and thousands of messages. But this time, the notifications weren't filled with mockery. The video of his performance and Jacob's revelation had spread across every platform on Earth. Within 12 hours, it had been viewed 200 million times. But more importantly, something had awakened in people everywhere. Musicians from around the world began sharing their own stories of fear and courage. A famous violinist posted a video of her first terrible audition, encouraging young artists to embrace imperfection. A rock star shared how a stranger's song had saved him from giving up during his darkest period. The hashtag strangers in the sky exploded across social media. People posted videos of themselves performing despite their fears, sharing stories of unlikely connections, and celebrating the courage to be vulnerable. A teenage girl with a stutter sang opera. An elderly man played piano with arthritis-gnarled fingers. A young boy with autism composed a symphony about feeling different. But the most profound impact went beyond music, applications to aerospace. Engineering programs increased by 400% in the week following the performance. Universities reported that students were specifically mentioning Elon's story as inspiration, not just his rockets and cars, but his willingness to be vulnerable, to fail publicly, and to honor the connections that had shaped his dreams. Young people began learning guitar not to become rock stars, but to understand the connection between creativity and scientific innovation. Music schools started offering programs that combined artistic expression with STEM education. Sarah Williams' story, now known worldwide, became a symbol for living fully despite uncertainty. Children's hospitals reported that young patients were asking to hear "Stranger in the Sky," finding comfort in the idea that feeling different might mean being important. At SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, something remarkable happened. Engineers began staying after work not just to solve technical problems, but to share music together. Marcus Chun, the young engineer who had first filmed Elon's clumsy guitar playing, started a company band. They called themselves the Mars Dreamers. "It's weird," Marcus told a reporter. "Ever since the boss played that song, we've been solving problems faster. It's like music opened up a different part of our brains." Tesla employees reported similar changes. Elon's willingness to show vulnerability had created a culture where people felt safer taking creative risks, admitting mistakes, and supporting each other through failures. Dr. Jacob Bernstein, energized by the worldwide response, began a new project from his retirement home. Working with Maria Santos and the Los Angeles Philharmonic, he created a program called Music for Dreamers, teaching music therapy to young engineers and scientists. Creativity and logic aren't opposites, Jacob explained in interviews. They're dance partners. Elon's story proves that the same courage needed to reach Mars is needed to play a song from your heart. The Los Angeles Philharmonic created the Sarah Williams Music and Science Scholarship, funded by donations that poured in after the performance. It supported young people who wanted to pursue both artistic and scientific dreams, understanding that both required the same willingness to reach for the impossible. But perhaps the most moving response came from an unexpected source. 3 weeks after the gala, Elon received a package with no return address. Inside was a worn notebook filled with sheet music and a letter written in shaky handwriting. "Dear Mr. Musk, my name is Elena Rodriguez. I am 94 years old and live in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I was a musician during World War II, playing piano, in secret to keep people's spirits alive during the darkest times that I stopped playing after the war. Like you, I became afraid that my music wasn't important enough, wasn't perfect enough. I put my piano away and never touched it again, but watching your performance reminded me that music was never about being perfect. It was about being brave enough to share hope when hope seemed impossible. Enclosed are 47 songs I wrote during the war but never shared with anyone. They are love letters to the future, written when the future seemed impossible. I am giving them to you because you understand that music travels across time to find the people who need it most. Play them or don't play them. Share them or keep them private. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I finally remembered why I wrote them. For every stranger in the sky who needs to know they are not alone. Thank you for teaching an old woman that it's never too late to be brave. Elena Rodriguez. P.S. I bought a new piano yesterday." Elon read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down his face. Here was another thread in the invisible web that Jacob had described. A 94-year-old woman in Argentina, inspired by his story to reclaim her own music after 80 years of silence. He called Elena immediately. Their conversation, conducted in a mixture of English and Spanish with help from translation software, lasted 3 hours. Elena played one of her wartime compositions over the phone, a haunting melody about hope surviving. "In darkness, your song reminded me that being afraid and being brave can happen at the same time," Elena said. Just like that little girl Sarah understood. Elon decided to honor Elena's gift by recording an album of her wartime compositions, with all proceeds going to music education programs worldwide. He enlisted Maria Santos and the Los Angeles Philharmonic to help arrange the pieces for modern audiences. The album, titled Letters to the Future, became an unexpected worldwide phenomenon. Not because it was perfect. Elon's guitar playing was still imperfect, his voice still occasionally cracked, but because it carried the authentic emotion of someone sharing his heart without hiding behind technique. Most importantly, Elon established a tradition that would outlast any of his technological achievements. Before every major SpaceX launch, he would play one song on his grandmother's guitar, dedicating it to dreamers who might not live to see their visions realized. The first launch after the gala was Starship's successful mission to establish a permanent base on Mars. As the rocket rose toward the red planet that Sarah had dreamed of visiting, Elon's voice carried across the launch site and around the world, singing "Stranger in the Sky" for every dreamer who had ever looked up and wondered if there was a place where they belonged. Standing in the crowd at Kennedy Space Center, watching humanity take its first real step toward becoming a multiplanetary species, were Linda Williams and Dr. Jacob Bernstein. Linda held a small urn containing Sarah's ashes, which would travel to Mars on the next cargo mission. "She made it," Linda whispered, watching the rocket disappear into the stars. "Our little girl finally made it to Mars." Jacob, now 90 and using a walker, smiled as Elon's voice faded into the distance. "Music travels faster than rockets," he said softly. It got there first. As the rocket carried humanity's hopes toward the red planet, Elon's guitar leaned against the window of his Austin mansion, silhouetted against the Texas night sky. Outside, children who had watched the launch were already humming Stranger in the Sky, carrying the song forward to the next generation of dreamers who would build the bridges between worlds. The boy who had once felt like an alien on Earth had learned the greatest truth of all: we are all strangers in the sky, reaching for home among the stars, connected by invisible threads of music and dreams, and the courage to believe that impossible things are just destinations we haven't reached yet. In the end, Elon's hidden talent had never really been hidden. It had been quietly changing the world for 30 years, one heart at a time, proving that sometimes the most important journeys happen not in rockets reaching for Mars, but in songs reaching for the part of us that still believes in magic. Where are you listening from? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the globe. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that being different makes you important, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for many more inspiring stories like this one. Most importantly, share this video with your friends and family. Stories like these remind us that we're all connected by invisible threads of kindness, dreams, and the courage to reach for impossible things. By sharing, you're helping spread awareness that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the foundation of all human connection. Thank you for listening, and remember, we're all strangers in the sky, but we don't have to feel alone.